You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. And be sure to smash that like button. Tigers Gators from the Swamp on Saturday, 2:30 Central Time. Sean Kelley will be on the call, the voice of the Gators. Our good friend's good enough to join us here for a couple of minutes. Sean, great to talk as always, man. How are you?
I'm well, but, this good friend thing, I move away from Louisiana, and the only time you call is when the Tigers and Gators get together. What happened?
Guilty, man. I don't know. Hey, you know what?
Right.
Hey, let me flip it back to you. Since you've moved away from Louisiana, how many times have you called me, even when the Tigers and Gators are playing?
Bad sell, going through a tunnel. I don't know what you're talking about.
I love it. So good. Hey, the question everybody's asking here is about DJ Lagway. Do you have an update on Lagway, number one? And number two, just if he is limited or doesn't play, how does that change what Florida does offensively?
Everything. I mean, everybody asks me, what's the most important thing? Or I get the question, the Gators will win this weekend if, and I go, if DJ Lagway plays. I mean, that's the whole thing. Napier said last night that he's trending in the right direction. He has been practicing this week. I think they'll hold off on making an ultimate decision until probably Saturday morning. It's one of those things, Matt. It's a hamstring. So, one day you're like, hey, I'm pretty good. Whatever you're doing's working. Get up the next morning, sucks. I think it's been a good week, but I can't give you a definitive answer yet.
Yeah. So how does the offense change? We only saw a very small sample of Austin Warner, and quite honestly, last week against Texas was just brutal all the way around. Texas is a great team, and Florida's really limited personnel-wise. So do they change what they do, how the offense functions? I mean, obviously Lagway's a five-star. He's an amazing talent, but how they function?
The base itself does not really change. What changes is what opens up as a result of what Lagway is able to do. Everybody talks about dual-threat quarterbacks. I don't know too many dual-threat quarterbacks that can have the arm that Lagway has. I mean, reminds me a little bit of Jaden in some ways, except DJ's been really good with the big ball. And so you have questions as a defense, what do I do with the box? Do I load the box because he's a dual threat? Do I lighten that box because I don't want to get beat on the deep ball? And so the difference between the offense under Warner and Lagway statistically tells you it's yards per play, right? But all that is translated by the fact that if Lagway does one thing successfully, it sets up something else. I don't know if Warner has the ability to strike you one way to set up the other thing. It's kind of more vanilla.
Yeah. The other thing is both teams are going to be very likely missing a starting offensive lineman. We'll see about Garrett Dellinger from LSU. Same thing with Damian George, the starting guard for Florida. How big of a deal is that if he doesn't play?
Well, again, he didn't play last week, and it was against Texas and with Warner at quarterback, so I didn't get a great read on it.
Sure.
But George has been really good since he moved over to guard. Here's this guy that rolls in from Alabama. He's as big as an Amazon warehouse. You're like, this is unbelievable. He's going to be a great tackle. Well, it just didn't work out. So this summer they moved him over to guard, and now it's translated much better for Damian George. And as a result, this line, after the first couple of weeks, has really gelled and found their collective groove. Take George out of there, and you mess with the groove a little bit. So I think they're hopeful that George can play this weekend. If not, Bryce Lovett will make his second start. And there is a little bit of a drop-off there. Everybody else on that line seems to be healthy and ready to go.
If you flip it over defensively, hey, look, I can look at box scores and stat sheets and national rankings, and none of it looks particularly like a Florida defense. I think LSU can certainly commiserate there. Where are they good defensively?
At the linebacking position. And then Trey'Dez Bridges is a versatile guy who might have to play cornerback for a second straight week. He was really coming along as a safety, but they're so banged up in the secondary right now. They've got pieces in different places, and even against Texas last week, he had third-string guys out there, or Cormani McClain making his second Gator start, or beg your pardon, first ever Gator start last week against UT, which is as good as I've seen them all year. Defensively up front, they're back to where I kind of thought they would be back in training camp. Yes, they miss Lyons. I mean, that's a big story that nobody really talks about when he went down with that gruesome injury in August. But Tyreek Sapp's been really good. Jack Pyburn has been a huge lift since coming back from the ACL. And really, ever since that first bye week, Matt, the Gators' defense, for the most part, has been serviceable.
Okay. What about Grayson Howard? He's going to miss this game. What do they do there at linebacker with Howard out?
Yeah, Jaden Robinson probably gets more run, and he's one of the two guys with best tackling grades if you're into the PFF stuff.
Sure.
But he probably rolls in there alongside Shamar James. Again, Pyburn's been kind of a hybrid edge linebacker guy that's come on strong. Howard's a loss because he's been one of the more – he's not the best guy on the Gators defense, but he's probably been the most consistent. And so that's a little different there. But you've got some depth. You've got Derek Wingo. Miles Graham has been a really nice story as a freshman, played in all the games. He'll get more snaps this week. But you'll miss Howard in some ways. Shamar, though, is still there to call the action.
Sean Kelley's with us, voice of the Gators. He's on Twitter, X at Sean Kelley Live, if you want to give him a follow there. Vegas has this one 3.5, 4, somewhere around there. So special teams could come into play. How are the Gators in the third phase?
Vastly improved from a year ago. I mean, last year was an absolute horror show. They might have the best punter in the nation, Jeremy Crawshaw, and he's had a real good ability of flipping the field for the Gators throughout the stretch that they played better than when they didn't last week. But anyway, Crawshaw's been great. Smack has been above average. They've got a really good long snapper. You don't talk about that guy very much, right? But he's been perfect all the way through. He's a semifinalist for that particular award. And he has a knack for getting downfield and making a tackle. I mean, it's kind of crazy how well he does in getting down to the return man. And then they've really kind of done a nice thing with Jim DK, who's a tremendous punt returner and wide receiver. Sometimes they'll put him at gunner, and on multiple occasions this year, he's run down and caught the punt inside the 10. So you don't really see that very often, but that's something that's served them well. So I think they're fine in that phase, and Crawshaw's the highlight of that group.
What's been sort of the mood there this week? Obviously, the game against Texas was disappointing, but the news that Billy Napier will be back, that's obviously a big story. What's it kind of like, Sean, at this point where I don't want to say it feels like a lost season, but there's been so much adversity, but Napier is going to come back. I mean, you're there every day. What does it sort of feel like around the program?
Let me give you the shortest answer I can on this. When Napier was on a real hot seat earlier in the season, the players probably had the opportunity, if they wanted to kind of give it in and maybe have some infighting in the locker room. They didn't. They wanted to play for Billy. They turned their season back in the right direction. The vote of confidence, if you will, was well received by the players. This group has the best culture since I've arrived in Gainesville. First year, not so great. Last year, a little bit better. This group I actually like being around a lot. That was one of the mysteries of the early season. What did I miss? Why haven't they started correctly here? But that character has come through with regard to their relationship with Napier and the ability to fight through the hot seat part and now all these injuries. They're getting guys back now from injury, and I think the vote of confidence having been well received, they look at these last three games as a chance to get bowl eligible. And if you think about Florida's schedule, that's an accomplishment in itself. And here's the final piece of this, Matt. All of Florida's best players are young guys on the roster, all Napier guys, and the future is now and with them moving forward. So it's not like you've got guys held over from the old program or have just had enough after 4 or 5 years. The guys that are producing are all the young guys, and they're pretty fired up right now.
Sean, part of the reason you might have missed it earlier as well, they played Miami and Texas A&M, who turns out those are pretty good teams. And that caused a little bit of the early bumps, but a tough finish. We'll see how it goes for the Gators. Tigers, 2:30 Central. Sean Kelley, voice of the Gators, will be on the call. Have a great call, man. I hope you have a miserable Saturday, but an otherwise wonderful rest of your week.
Matt, it's good to hear from you, and I appreciate your honesty as always. I'm ready for the losing streak to the Tigers to be over for the Gators.
And I am very ready for it to continue. You know what, Sean? I'll reach out to you Saturday if it continues. How about that? It won't even become on the OC. That's Sean Kelley. On Twitter at Sean Kelley Live. Go give him a follow. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.